This year, especially Superintendent's Equity Council, and just overall equity and access and equity in education, which has become a buzz terminology over the past year or so. The Department of Education, Commissioner Belleville. I'm sorry, are we ready to go? Sorry, James. No, don't go there yet. We're live streaming. I forgot to give James a heads up that I was going to start. Sorry. But yeah, this year has become more of a buzz term with the Commissioner of Education, Department of Education, but it's something that I know here in Belleville we've been talking about at least since my arrival 5 years ago with regard to a few different things. And what tonight is going to be is a short presentation to just basically get everyone interested in what equity and access is, talk about where we are at Belleville, some of the ideas moving forward here, but the main goal tonight is to get input from you as well as a major stakeholder group or groups that we have in here. We have teachers here, we have administrators, parents, other members of district board members, just to hear what some of your concerns might be, some of the things that you think about when we say the word equity, we talk about the district, etc. So this is the time to do that, to help us out in moving forward and putting a plan together. So basically, that's the goal for tonight as we lay out the foundation of what this equity piece, is excellence and equity would be for the remainder of the school year and moving forward. So if you do have questions, let's just wait till the end and we can kind of move forward from that. So James, just hit those lights once we see it better. So, again, this is nothing new to Belleville. It may be new formally to Belleville, but something that I know Central Administration, I know the teachers, things that we work on that you may not be aware of as constituents and stakeholder members. There's definitely something in the microphone. For example, curriculum writing, when we do textbooks, when we buy new textbooks, of that nature. We are very, very aware of equity issues with regards to different things, demographic, social aspect. Those are some things that we've always had here, but I think some of the districts in New Jersey, I'll just leave it general at that, maybe aren't where we are. However, we can always get better, and I think you'll see tonight where our district, or at least where the Central Administration is looking, when we define equity, we're looking to expand that title a little bit. So tonight we're going to basically discuss what equity in education really is. Equality versus equity, I think that's the big thing. Things that are equal and things that are equitable. It's important to know the difference, especially when it comes to education. Programs developed to promote equity. Some of the things that we're doing here, obviously we're not going to talk about all the things that are happening, because I think I could probably sit here with each individual teacher and they can tell you some of the things that they do specifically to make sure their students are aware and all their students are taken care of in their needs. But again, tonight is just that first step in the open dialogue so that you're all aware of some of the great things that are happening here in district. And I'm sure you're aware of most of them anyway, but we want to celebrate some of these things because again, these are things that we've been doing for a long time now. With any type of program that you're putting in, any type of position that you're taking in anything really in life, but more so, especially in education, you need a framework. You need a framework to base these things on. So the framework that we're going to be discussing tonight is something called 10 Steps to Equity Education and the Belleville Public School System. So when we get there, that's going to be the crux of where we examine what we've been doing so far, and at the end of those 10 steps, that 10th step is where our goals are moving forward, which now, through this council, through other input that you're hopefully going to give me, whether it's tonight, via email, on the phone, whatever ideas you have, or those people at home watching tonight, the ideas they have, or your neighbors when you're all, somewhere at a game or at each other's houses talking about this. We're going to put that together for the board as the board now moves to its goals and a new strategic plan. So our former 5-year strategic plan is now up this year. So when the board now, after it's just reorganized, we'll be sitting in a retreat soon enough where we put together a new 5-year plan, a strategic plan, and this will be a major part of it. So all of this within the next month or so is going to come together collectively. So number 10 in the 10 steps you'll see will be where the goals move through. So that's going to be the big part of tonight. Obviously, how can we improve and future considerations is what I want to hear from you. And after we talk about what equity, equality, equity, and access is, you'll see a little where we're headed as a district and why that's that last part is really the most important piece of tonight. So, all right. So, I probably should have that first, but if you didn't grab any pizza, please grab some pizza, some coffee. You can bring it in. Obviously, it's okay to bring it in, but please, there's plenty of food out there. Maybe take some home. So basically, what is equity in education? And it's nothing that I made up. This is a strict definition. I think we all know it. Again, equity and equality and some of those things we're talking about. But in education, it's the process of reforming. That's a very important word. Reforming practices, reforming policies, reforming procedures. And then this next part here is even more important in Belleville. Because this is where I think, not only do we do things great in Belleville, but we also recognize that this is where we have to get better. And we need to get better at the school level, the school levels. One of the biggest things that I've always talked about since we've been here, and the people that hired me, I remember having a strict conversation with them when I was hired, was that we wanted to make sure, not that it wasn't happening, but obviously we could always get better at things. We wanted to make sure that the students on one side of Belleville had the same exact things on the other side of Belleville. That was extremely important. And I think since, and I can only speak for the 5 years I've been here, I think we've done an excellent job as a team, making sure that the programs, the initiatives, the supplies, all of those things, even with the referendum, the board sat down and we worked on referendum projects. We wanted to make sure that every building was some type of project, whether it be HVAC or plumbing or some of those things. So we wanted to make sure. So that's what we do really well here. But the equity education supports the academic fairness and inclusion, which become two important terms in a few minutes. We need to ensure that every child has resources, teachers, interventions, and supports. That's what that is. So the equity in education have all of that together, the reforming of all those things, so that we can make sure our kids are successful. We can make sure that our district continues to be successful. We have to be careful not to make this a direct correlation to test scores, because that's not what it's about. All right? We're going to talk about test scores very quickly. Those of you who know me well enough know I don't like talking about test scores, because I think that's a very minimal way of gauging how a district is. Right? There are too many things that happen in a district that talk about an aggregate number of children. All right? We have the same top 10% kids academically as any other district in this state. Same kids. We have the same bottom 10% as any other district in the state. Right? But when you talk about aggregate, you have to put other factors in there too. And that's why it's very difficult when you see scores to paper or rankings to talk about that. So when we talk about equity and access, when we talk about equity in education, we're not only talking about test scores. So it's very important that even though it's a part of it, we're really talking about practices, policies, and procedures. Different things that kids need, students need, every day to be successful 21st century learners in the global marketplace. That's our job. Okay? So there's your definition. It's also an idea that society, meaning everyone in this community, not just the Belleville Public Schools District, everyone in the community should provide basic work skills of reading, writing, math. That's your basic skills. Right? Regardless if it's in the classroom, in the workplace, at an internship, teaching a kid getting a slice of pizza at a pizzeria or something, whatever it is, the entire community should work together to make sure that the basic work skills are met and prohibit discrimination based on these important facts: gender, origin, and SES, socioeconomic status. Right? Because in every village, in every township, in every community, those three factors weigh in greatly for the success of students. All right? And one of the issues is that those factors, not all of them, but most of them, are already predetermined. Okay? So it's very important to talk about that as well when we're trying to come up with a plan to make sure that we're meeting all these equity issues. So that's your basic full definition of what we're looking to do. And again, it's not that it's not sophisticated, right? However, it's basic common sense, but you really have to set goals in order to make sure that we're meeting this. I've just pressed this 4 times. There we go. Okay. 2 basic parts of this plan, which I call 2 different dimensions. Fairness and inclusion, right? So those are overall parts of these 2 dimensions that kind of meet this framework that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Fairness, making sure that there are absolutely no obstacles, okay, towards success, right? It's fair to everyone. Right? It's our job here at the district, working with all the stakeholder groups, to make sure that things are fair and equitable. All right? So that's the first dimension. And some of those circumstances should not be obstacles. For example, gender, regardless of what it is, your SES, socioeconomic status, your ethnic origin, everything should be fair regardless of those issues. No matter how much your parents make, how much the family income is, any of that. The second piece is inclusion. Everyone should have the ability to do those 3 basic skills. They should be included in all those areas. And those are very basic needs. We know that our children need more than that, all right? But if you know anything about Maslow's hierarchy and some of those other things that some of you have studied, nothing at the top, nothing at the apex matters until all those basic needs are met, all right? So when we have children that come to us, which we do, that are not on reading level, that cannot do basic math, we have to make sure that they're included in such a way so that that doesn't become an issue in their future. So there are some obstacles that we do face here on a daily basis. I think some of the slides you'll see tonight may not surprise some of you in the room or at home, but some people haven't realized that there has been a significant change in the district over the past 2 decades. Okay, with regard to different things of socioeconomic status, ethnicity, different demographics. Okay, so things have changed. We are a district now that sees a major, I don't like using the word transient population of students, but we have a large number of students that register in January. That's very difficult for us as teachers and as educators when we get students that have already been taught for 5 months. They come in, they're behind already. So picture yourself being a teacher. He or she has 25, 26, 27 or more students. We don't have small class sizes here, right? And they're in a classroom doing what they can to differentiate instruction, to make sure everything's equitable and accessible, right? And then all of a sudden now January comes and the teacher takes a break, relaxes as much as he or she can, to get rejuvenated, rejuvenated, comes back to school and realizes that they have a brand new student from a different town who's now way behind anything they've done. Right? That is very common in this district. Right? And I think we don't talk about it enough. And we don't need to talk about it because we treat, and I'll speak to the teachers now, we treat every student the same, regardless of where they come from, what their gender is, what their socioeconomic status is, or what their ethnic origin is. So this is an important piece, and we do a very good job of understanding that there's 2 dimensions to this piece, right? That there's two parts to this framework that we're going to talk about in a second. So this is a very important slide just to kind of see where we're at, and when we talk about equity, different things. I don't know why those boxes are there, but Equality versus equity. So there's a lot of words on here, but I think it's important to understand that there are two differences when we're talking about equality and equity. I'm not going to read the slide to you. You can all sit there and read while I'm talking, because the next slide says it all right? And a picture, so you don't have to read it, but I think it's important to understand that one of the things that I think we do really well here, and it's kind of a tangent, it's kind of out there, right? Is that when we talk about equity here, we're not talking about all the time the regular definition of, you know, we talk about demographic, socioeconomic status. Those are definite things that we could address. But we take it a step further, though, and we talk about those students that need equity, even on the other end of it, like our talented and gifted students, right? We want to make sure that it's equitable for them too, because we don't always want to talk about the students that have more needs, even though that's important. We want the students that have special needs as well. And that takes us to all of our special populations. So we make sure that that equity is fair and there's inclusion in all of our programs, not just those that are identified usually when we talk about equity and access. Right? I think everybody kind of knows what some of those issues are, but we make sure that we understand that in all different areas of the day, all different areas of our students and their families, there are different equity and equality issues. And we understand that we can provide all students with support they need so they can exceed what a common standard would be, because that's the only way we excel in life, right? So here's the actual picture. You may have seen a picture of kids like at a baseball game, right? Looking on the fence. Have you seen that one? This one I like better, with the apple tree here. So left shows you what equality is. Equality is all three of those individuals have the ability to eat an apple, right? To grab an apple. It's the same apple, right? So it's an equal and it's a fair thing. We are giving everyone the opportunity to eat an apple, okay? Even though that's equal or it's equality, it's not equitable, because as we see, we have issues on the left side with size, right? We have some individuals there that are small and easily grab the apple. We have other individuals a little shorter and have a hard time reaching for the apple. And then we have somebody that's just like, you know what? I know I'm not ever getting that apple, so I'm not going to reach for it. Okay? So if you take that easy analogy and put it in the perspective of students that are having some issues, I can easily say to you that, yeah, we have totally done an extremely incredible job making sure that there is equality with everything we do in the district. All right, all of our kids, this, and this, going out. We spend budget monies on things, okay? But then when you get to the other side of this analogy here, this is what we're striving for, the equity piece, okay? What can we do in programs? What can we do for students? What can we do for families? What can we do for the community as a district so that we can make the equality equitable? Okay, and as you see in this little example here, which I still think is the best example that I've seen ever out there, is that by, making the boxes, taking, not so much taking from one and giving to the other, but by making the boxes different sizes, right? By somehow assisting others, right, with different resources or more resources, we can at least make that now equitable. The biggest thing about this picture on the right is that you need to identify where that inequity exists. Okay? So if you can't figure out where that inequity is on the left, we'll never be able to have equity altogether. Okay? So again, it seems like a very simple concept, and it is, but when you start adding all these different layers into it in a school district, that's why we have something like this tonight. That's why we have everybody involved. That's why we keep the dialogue open, and the communication is very important. Because we can miss certain things that we don't understand. I give the example in the former district I was in of one school in a town They had penmanship books. Now, some of us remember what penmanship was, right? It was a class, and the teacher at the chalkboard, and they used to have those lines that went across, and you had to practice and stuff like that. One school had a principal that was old school principal, and everything had a penmanship book. And the other side of town, the kids didn't even know what penmanship was, right? And parents came to a meeting once, and they were like, how come, I'm still in a lot of parents wanted to know how come their children are learning, and how come my children aren't, and I didn't have an answer. I was like, you know what? I don't know. It's a really good question. So again, that's why dialogue like this is important, and that example, I believe, is an equality and equity issue, but it's not what most people are talking about today. Most people are talking about those demographic areas, okay, with socioeconomic status, ethnicity, for equity and access. We here in Belleville are talking about all of it. That's an important thing to remember, okay? So again, these two pictures are say it all. This whole presentation will be posted after tonight, so again, if you ever need to see this again or use it. And this is what I was just talking about. This is just a slide to remind all of you that equity for us, again, isn't just about the things that we're going to talk about tonight with a strict definition. One of our major goals here as a central administration, which trickle down all the way to the staff on every level of the building, is that we want to make sure that each one of our schools has all the same programs, all the same ability, and all the supplies, everything at each different building. Okay, we want to make sure everything is equitable there. Now, some buildings have their own culture. Okay, for example, one building may have an historic thing that they do every year, or a tradition that another building may not have. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, and that's something that Belleville loves. Belleville loves what? We want to keep our neighborhood schools, right? We want to keep our neighborhood schools. The first thing that the state comptroller said coming in here when we were in deficit, when I first read the report, was, you know, you have two small schools, 9 and 10, right? And the first thing was, well, why don't you close one of those schools and consolidate? And what we said back was, that takes away our whole neighborhood feeling, right? So that's something that this community wants. That's a belief of the board, that's a feeling of the board, it's something that we feel is special here in Belleville. So if that's something that we need, and we think is important, obviously, we want to make sure that all those things are equitable. So this just reminds us, those are all the mascots, by the way. So let's talk about Belleville for a little bit. Those of you who are not maybe familiar with some of these numbers. At the aggregate of all our students here, we have some different demographics. The next two slides talk about it. So let's talk about overall different demographics with regard to programs. So 15% of our students here receive special services, whether that's targeted assistance, meaning speech, full-out modifications through an IEP. 15% of our student population has some kind of modification, all right? The big number here that people, I don't think, understand, and this number is very low right now, okay, because parents still haven't finished filling out paperwork for free and reduced lunch, which if you were at one of our other meetings where we were talking about the scanners, you understand one of the issues that we've been having here. But without even saying that, I don't know what the true numbers are. The number right now for those individuals who did fill out the proper paperwork is 53%. 53% of our students here receive either free or reduced lunch. Okay? That means that 53% of our students' families meet a certain level of what's known as the poverty number for free or reduced lunch in the free or reduced lunch program, federal program. All right? So that's a definite demographic that's changed over the past several decades, which is important to understand. And I would say that number is probably closer to 60%. And it fluctuates a little bit here because of people that transfer in, people that transfer out, registrations, etc. And also some people are on temporary relief if they lose their job or whatever. However, that's that number. First language at home other than English. 36% of our students' families speak a different language other than English at home. Okay, again, pretty large number, which ties into our English language learner population. So 6% of all the families, which correlates a lot to that 36% though, are students that come here and need assistance speaking English. All right, so this number's grown a little bit since I've been here, the 6%, but this is our major demographic numbers that we deal with that ultimately tie into some of these other metrics that people like to talk about a lot. Okay, like test scores and those things. These are absolute factors with regard to those metrics that people like to talk about all the time. When you talk about correlations to other towns and how other towns are significant. Okay? Other towns don't need to deal with some of these issues, all right? And we deal with them expertly and efficiently. We make sure that all of our kids, all right, are successful. Doesn't mean that certain kids that, a kid who has, I don't know, a 40 on a test, and in 2 years now has a 60 on a test, right? That's an incredible growth rate for that child, especially that child who's English language learner, right? But you're not going to see that in the paper. You're not going to see that growth rate. You're just going to see the 60 still, right? So there's a lot of stuff here that, yes, I'm talking to Mr. Barrera because I'm right here. I have to do a better job of probably getting some of those things out to you. And we're going to start doing that this year because of this whole equity piece. But this is a pretty important demographic slide. That goes along with this next slide, which is our basic breakdown. I don't know if you can see that, I'll read it out. Demographic, white, 13% of our students are white, 69% Hispanic, 8% Black or African American, Asian 9%, and then others 1%. Okay? The high school, I believe, is over 70% Hispanic. I believe the high school is 74% Hispanic. Right? So again, different than 2 decades ago. Understandably, some of the things we're going to talk about in the next few slides, we'll see some of the changes that have happened just within the 5 years. I can really only speak to 5 years. I've been here 5 years now, which is a nice number, but I can show you I can tell you where we were 5 years ago, and then where we are now with certain issues, talking about equity and access. So these are true numbers, so that you all see them. You're definitely not going to see this, but these are data numbers with regards to the passing rates of these standardized tests. Basically, what you see, hold on. Okay, Asian is red, white is green, African American is yellow, and Latino is blue. So as you see that we have ELA and math on the left side. Okay, overall passing percentages for all the students in those groups. We can see that we're kind of, we're starting to work on some of the equity issues in some of those areas. Then you see there's also here for the economically disadvantaged students. Those are students that fall in that poverty range, free reduced lunch areas. So again, we have the data, we use the data so we can see the gaps in the groups, and that was something that the Department of Education, and actually the whole federal government was working on for like 10 years now, I guess, trying to work on different gaps. And districts used to get, well, for lack of a better term, in trouble if there were big gaps between groups of learners, right? So if one group was here, the other group was down here, the federal government or the state would come in and you would fail on certain areas of your, at the time it was QAR, your quality assurance reports, and you sometimes would lose funding and different things of that nature. I don't really know if I ever agreed with that, because what that was saying is that administrators, teachers were actually segregating groups. And the argument I used to say all the time was that I couldn't go into a building and say, hi, this is the principal, can all the white students please come down for extra help? Right? I mean, I couldn't say that, and I would never say that. Right? But in effect, that's what powers that be at the time wanted you to do. They wanted you to basically, we pulled students out. And we came out with a very interesting term called a cusp student, right? Those of you probably in the field know what I'm talking about. And those were the students that we looked at were just right on the border of passing the test, regardless of color, regardless of creed, and we really wanted to work with those students. Okay, because we were kind of forced to do that. It's not like that anymore, all right? And it's definitely not like that in a place like Belleville, all right? We don't really look at some of that data, and simply because, again, our numbers are so high with regard to different demographic groups, and we've done such a great job with trying to get the climate together as one unit here, and I think no one can really argue that with us. But again, that is basically something that a lot of districts do deal with. So what is then true equity? When we talk about equity, we talk about, so let's just settle on what true equity is. Okay, so we want to talk about what groups are impacted directly and on the outside. Okay, things that we do, programs that we have, programs that we don't have, programs that we're lacking in, right? Who's affected directly and who's affected on the outside too. And who's most affected on the outside usually is, or are, families, right? Because family involvement is extremely important. And it's different having this conversation in a town where the socioeconomic status is high and many of the mothers or fathers are home, right? Maybe one-income households, as opposed to a town where socioeconomic status is lower, right? And parents are working 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, right? It's difficult to have those conversations. You know, in certain towns, they can have PTO, HSA meetings, OPE meetings at 10 o'clock in the afternoon, in the morning, right? And it's packed. There's 100 parents there, right? You can't have that in a town like Belleville. It's just not fair to those parents that have to work. It's not. So where is the equity? Where is the equality when we talk about schools? When you're going to sit here and talk to me about, let's compare Belleville to all these other districts, that's a major concern. Where's the equity there? Where's the equity there? Nobody seems to bring that up. So that's why I say to everybody when I talk to about all these metrics, let's just worry about Belleville, right? Don't worry about anyone else, right? Don't worry about anyone else's kid. Worry about our own kids here. That's what we should be worrying about, right? But that's a major part. Who's impacted directly and who's impacted on the outside? Does the program that we have here help or worsen things? Is this program really working? And the only way we know that, the only way we know if that's if we're doing this right, is by taking a step back and assessing things. We need to assess what's happening. Do a really good job of that. And I think we get a lot of feedback from the parents and the community stakeholders as well, so that also helps us. We're basically seeing if the program is working on it. How have the stakeholders been involved? Well, just tonight, we have a nice group of people tonight, nice size. I would love to have filled the whole auditorium, but I don't think we're busy. There might be people at home watching. People may watch after this, after you all go home and talk about it or send it out. But, you know, we want to hear what's happening, right? That's how we're getting everybody involved. What are the barriers? Okay, what different barriers do we have here? We have to be able to identify those. And how will the negative barriers be addressed? Okay, how are we going to address these barriers? Let's not just talk about the barriers. What's the game plan? What's the action plan? All right, so those are important things. So I put down a few things here off the top of my head when we were doing this. There's a few things that we do, all right, that what Belleville does to address equity through what we do here. So programs for special education populations. I don't mean special education students or IDPs. I mean all special education, meaning talented, gifted, vocational, all of that, as you see I have down here as well. We want to make sure that we know that college isn't for every student, right? But what did we talk about when we first started with the inclusion and the fairness, right? Math, language, or English, right? All of those basic skill sets to be able to be successful, okay? So we want to make sure that all of our populations of students are taken care of. We do a great job of that. You can see that in our curriculums that we write, with the assistance of the teachers, the people in the trenches. You see about all the programs, all the administrators that go out and we learn new programs from other districts that are successful, and those things. Community multicultural events. We have some major multicultural events throughout the year that have grown. The first year we put it in place when I was here, I think there was 50 people here, 80 half of us were staff members. Now it's, Fusion at the end of the year is packed, it's a great event. We talk about dancing and food, different things. We didn't have anything for Black History Month until I arrived 5 years ago. Now we have a celebration there. So again, these are things that are tying the community together. Again, talented people programs, our academies. Okay, we have several academies at the high school now to tailor to different students' needs. We're also putting in, board is hopefully going to accept another academy that we're putting up for approval this board meeting. So a lot of stuff we're doing there. Amistad compliance, which you haven't seen the crosswalks here. Mr. Demikoff does that at our board meetings as well. And basically talks about, African American culture and those things, and Amistad compliance regulations. Our BUCS program, which is our Universal Campus program, for those students that need something beyond the general education program. It's sort of like a school after school here, high school that's very successful. Our vocational programs that we brought back for those students who needed that and an equity issue. We're working culinary arts and cosmetology. Students can get actual licenses when they leave here, which makes that an equitable factor. Extracurricular activities, sports and clubs for all different needs of students. Title IX considerations, you know what Title IX is? It's basically equity of female, male, gender sports, clubs, programs, whatever we have here. We're very, very into the Title IX compliance here. And I know for a fact that our students are very astute when it comes to Title IX because I've had many discussions with them about things that they thought weren't fair when I first got here. So that's something that Belleville does really well. And it's in all of our curriculums and lesson plans where we are very cognizant of multiculturalism. We're very cognizant of all the rights of all of our students. So again, this is some of the stuff that you'll see that we're really proud of, consideration of equity. So then at the end of the day, it comes to the framework, okay? And this framework is from something called OECD. And if you're really into data and statistics, and you want to look at data and statistics on a global scale, especially with regard to education, you should check out their website and all their data. This is an incredible amount of stuff on there. You can see where we compare to other countries. It really is incredible. So, just taking right from them, the framework was 10 steps to equity education. And the overall goal for us, okay, when looking at this framework is that we want to reduce school failure and dropout rates. Okay? And we don't mean so much just classroom failure. We mean failure as a whole, in every little thing we do. Okay? Not just so much books. We want to make society fairer and avoid large social costs of marginalized adults with few basic skills. So while we're doing all of this, while we're helping all of our students here be successful adult learners, successful in their career choices, regardless of what they are, we're also helping out society. Because that's our goal as a district. Our goal is to make sure that society moves forward. We say it's on the bottom of all of our letterheads, we're turning learners into leaders. That's our mantra. It's not just something that looks good on paper. It's true. We want our learners not to just become workers, not just become managers, to become the leaders of tomorrow. So that's how we are also, that's something that's very important. So that's the overall goal. That's this framework. And it starts by the first step. Limit early tracking and screening and postpone academic selection. Now, the OECD is not tailored to just this country. It's not tailored just to Belleville, obviously, or New Jersey. So you're going to see things that are problems everywhere, worldwide, okay? So what do we do here? Well, we put in a kindergarten screening process as a vehicle to some equitable interventions. We didn't put the screening process in to start tracking. We put a screening process in so we knew that students maybe needed some interventions. That was an important piece of number one. Preschool expansion. We talk about preschool expansion every day, and we've done it for the past 5 years that I've been here. I know it's a brand new thing on the minds of many people in Belleville because we're finally starting to get more programs in here, but it took us this long to get space, and over the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to see more growth in that area as we're building, we're connecting with certain contractors to get more space because the numbers are, I don't think this is top secret, but but the number that's out there from all of our data is that there are 600 additional students on the horizon that could utilize preschool here. 600 students. That does nothing but benefit us to get them into seats. Okay, and again, I'm not talking about test scores, I'm talking about the future. The quicker we get them here, the quicker we can teach them those skills, right? And it's an equitable process. So preschool expansion and Head Start program plan. We're looking into Head Start. So Klein's been talking to Head Start almost every day. I think he's going to move into the building soon. But again, it's a very important piece of this streamlined process. So that's just 3 or 4 things we're doing for number 1. Second step to our equity plan, our framework, is to manage school choice so as to contain the risks to equity. So let me just give you a little bit of this. Some towns have to have school choice, right, by federal law. Some towns, they allow school choice, meaning that I want my kid to go to school on the other side of town because it's a better school, right? You want to do everything you can to limit that. We do that here with schools, by keeping the schools the same age bracket. Right? So we do a great job of that because we love neighborhood schools. We talked about it, right? Oh, where did you grow up? I grew up here. It's a culture thing. It keeps Belleville being Belleville, and it's an important part to the equity piece here. And we work hard to close the gap on perceived inequities in those schools. Perceived inequities. Because I think it's I always say to parents or people that I talk to, especially in my own personal life, is because people come up to me all the time is, how do I talk to my superintendent? How do I talk to my principal? I go, listen, question before comment. Okay, always ask the question before you make a negative comment. All right, we have a lot of perceived inequalities in this town. People think right away because they hear something or they think something, they think it's inequitable before they ask the question. All right, so we're trying to close the gap on all those to make sure that people know before they question that everything is equal in this town. All right, so that's one of our other goals to step 2. Step 3 is some of the stuff we talked about already, but I want to talk about a few of the other points. In upper secondary education, so that's like junior, senior year, provide attractive alternatives, remove dead ends, and prevent dropout. Well, that's why we started the academies. We didn't want to lose 8th graders coming into the high school because they didn't feel there was enough academic rigor, or they didn't feel like there was a program for them. All right, so the academies are here. We have a coordinator of secondary pathways and apprenticeships. She's actually here tonight, okay, who works with students at the high school to get some internships to try to get them some job placement or into different colleges. We brought back some vocational programs, curricular updates and trends that are second to none in the state. We enhanced the academic advising and counseling for HED by hiring counselors at the high school that also have college experience, and by expanding that program, that counseling venue, by hiring 3 or 4 additional counselors this year to expand that. The BUCS program we talked about, and something called options for graduation credits. Okay? For those of you who don't know what option 2 is, that basically means that any kid in any school in New Jersey, as long as the board accepts it, and our board has accepted it here, can create his or her own plan for credits. Okay, so let's say I'm a ballet dancer or whatever it is, and I dance ballet every week, and then I'm in a company. You can actually sit down with a teacher or your ballet teacher or whomever it is and actively come up with a curriculum with our help, and you could get 5 credits for that. All right, that's your own pathway. It's a unique pathway to equity for an individual. Right? I need this for myself. This is something that I need, something that I'm interested in. Right? So why would we stop that? So we have students that use that option 2. That's here. So those are attractive alternatives to that. Second chances to gain from education. So what do we do with kids that just have a bad year? Right? So we utilize technology now. We have EDGES here, ancillary credit recovery programs. All right? Now, are they perfect? No, they're not perfect, but they're part of our equity plan. It's something we have to get a little better at, making sure some of our teachers work with us to make sure those credit recovery programs work, but it's definitely part of the plan. Our summer institutes, making sure students continue to work, basic skills, STEM initiatives. If you have elementary children, you could have joined our STEAM Academy last year, right? We have other things coming this summer, you'll be hearing about very soon, with regard to summer institutes. And then the Adult Learning Academy, which was very successful last year. Hope we get more people in it, more programs. But you know, we had adult driving lessons, a whole bunch of different things. So that was our second chances for education. Number 5, identify and provide systematic help to those who fall behind in school and reduce year repetition. So that's what we said about adding additional counselors at all levels of the district. Okay, we have to strengthen the counseling schedule so that with the drop-in centers in middle and high school, taking out that social emotional element, so we can have easier academic advising, try to help with some of those issues with no more repetition. 6, strengthen the links between school and home to help disadvantaged parents help their children to learn. Bilingual communication. When I came here to district, we had one secretary who was bilingual, and she was part of a grant that was running out or something, I don't remember, something like that. So now we make sure that every building has that. Okay, the communications go home now as much bilingual as we can. That some families have different languages other than Spanish. So we want to make sure that that's important. Okay, we have ESL or ELL nights where parents come and they learn the same thing everybody else learns technology-wise. So we make sure that's all incorporated. We were actually just talking about this again last night, the at-home visit initiative. When I first came here 5 years ago, we tried to talk to the union about this. Maybe it's time to have that conversation again. But something that I learned when I was at Harvard, some of the things that they did, cutting edge stuff there, was that if the parents couldn't get to us, it was time for us to get to the parents. All right, so that was something that we kind of pushed here a little bit. I was still very young here. Maybe now it's something we can get back to talking to, come to the table. But that's definitely something that will strengthen the link between school and home. Bath nights, multicultural events, family fun nights. And we try to strengthen that relationship between the district or the board and our, I'm sorry, say HSA, because that was autocorrect. HSAs, PTOs, and OPEs, your parent groups, and all the booster clubs. So now we have that group meet with us every month with our board liaisons and our community engagement officer, which is a whole other department, to make sure that everybody's cohesive again for that equity and access. To make sure we continue to strengthen those relationships. Because that's what it's about. It's about strengthening relationships. 7, respond to diversity, provide for successful inclusion of migrants, minorities with mainstream education. We use our data for this, our subgroup data, our different things to review strategic implementation, and our overall, our cultural sensitivity is very reflective in our policies, our protocols, our lesson planning, anything that's relevant to the district. We are very sensitive culturally, or multiculturally, or culturally faceted to all those things. Even right down to picking up a textbook. Okay, we are very aware now of textbooks that have pictures of people of color, people in wheelchairs. We are very cognizant of those things. Very important things because they're real life issues. Okay, we are a community that prides itself, I'll say a school community at least, that prides itself on our multiculturalism and everybody coming together, working together without any issues. And I'm proud to stand up here and say that we don't have any issues, and I know that's going to continue. 8, provide strong education for all, giving priority to early childhood provision and basic schooling. We've been recognized as a high-performing district, which takes us a long way from 5 years ago, where we didn't get out of the single digits in our scores. Advanced programming that we have here, advanced classes, different electives, robotics now, different things that we've never heard before that our students are taking and excelling in. Progressive curricular structure in all content areas, strong extracurricular component, and dedication to preschool expansion. So number 8 is a lot. Direct resources to students with the greatest needs. I think this is something that we do really well here. Our resources still, I mean, we could argue about this all night. We're still underfunded. So we still need more funding to do more resources, give more resources, but we still use that subgroup data again in our sensitivity to making sure students with the greatest needs get what they need, And that comes from our teachers who let us know what those needs are. And then finally, the best part of this 10-step process, no matter how you just kind of like looked at it and said, oh, it's a big deal, is setting the goals now moving forward. You have these 9 steps, and 10 step is to set concrete targets for more equity, okay, related to low school attainment and dropouts, particularly to those things, all right? We want students to succeed here, and the only way we can make sure they're successful is if they complete our entire program here, whatever program they choose. That's why the different pathways are important, because not every student is different than every other student. Just like if you have multiple children, you know each kid is different, right? It's the same thing here. Someone who likes science might like cosmetology, who knows? So, we have 3 goals established so far administratively that we want to bring to the board. And now with your help tonight, if you have anything to say, if you don't feel comfortable speaking out, you can see me after. But we want to decrease disproportionality and increase access for the underrepresented groups. That doesn't just mean color, race, religion. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about any group. So if our talented and gifted group of students, our top 2% of our learners here, are somehow underrepresented, we want to make sure that we recognize it, and we want to make sure we know how to get through those negative barriers we talk about. So again, in Belleville, when we talk about equity, we talk about everyone's equity, okay? 2, or second bullet, increase district awareness and collaboration around our equitable practices. Together, we can do a better job making sure that everybody knows that we do these things. All right? Because I think it's important. It's important to new families that come here. It's important to people that are out there looking into Belleville, because whether you believe it or not, people are starting to look in Belleville again. Right? Looking at us for a lot of different things. We get calls all the time. We borrow this. County office wants to use our stuff. There's great things happening here. Okay? Our teachers are proving that. Our administrators are proving that. Our kids are proving that. So we want to make sure we continue to increase that awareness through things like this with people like you, making sure everyone understands what's happening, okay? And continue to increase diverse hiring practices, okay? When I first got here, created the Chief Talent Officer position, which Billy is here, okay, tonight, one of the first things we talked about is, yeah, we need more equity in all those areas that we've talked about, okay? Now, we don't go out and just specifically recruit different people in that manner, all right? But we need to be aware of maybe we're looking in the wrong places. Maybe we're recruiting in the wrong places. I don't know what it is, right? So we need to have more dialogue about that, okay? Because our faculty represents the best they can for our students, and we want to make sure that all those individuals from different cultures, whether they are, talented and gifted, whether these teachers were talented and gifted students when they were there, or National Honor Society, or not, it doesn't matter. We want you to be part of the group if you're here to do the best thing for our kids. Okay, so that's something that we also want to work on. And then more from you. Whatever you have, whatever you think we're missing here on what we just discussed tonight in consideration of equity. Okay? Again, not so much equality, but equity. Right? That's what we want to hear from you. And then when we get all that, the board's going to be approving all of this as we gather all this data as part of their strategic plan moving forward, because this is definitely a major goal here that, again, we've been doing. It's not something we haven't been recognizing, but I think it's time now to bring it out to our stakeholder groups in a little more of a formal process. So these are the 10 steps again. I'm not going to read them, but all together, okay, they come together to basically put together our framework. Okay, that's what I have, and it's longer than I thought it would be. But the important part is that you're here tonight. The important part is that the teachers out here, I really appreciate your time. You don't know how much I appreciate you being here. The administrators, you guys too, but you should be here. But the parents are out here tonight. Thank you also for coming. And I want to open up. Anybody has anything they want to say right now? If they have something they want to say, just raise your hand, and I'll come up and you can say it. If and I'll be here after if you want to privately. Mr. Barrera is going to take notes. So, yes. That's you, yeah.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
There you go.
I'm really subconscious having my back to people. It's gorgeous, yeah. Happy New Year. I'm Sarah Urbano. I'm a Belleville parent. I have 3 kids who go to school here. So thank you, Dr. Tomko, for the presentation. I have a few comments to share, obviously, in case you don't know me. So first, I like to see the district create more culturally inclusive spaces that embrace the rich diversity of our student body. So this means encouraging students to use language other than English during free time, during recess, during group work, because none of this exists in a vacuum. So we can put these great statistics on the screen and say, diversity, inclusion, all of this, but until it's like a complete inclusion, it's not inclusive. Make sense? Okay. So we have, that goes beyond the hosting of our successful events like the Hispanic Heritage Festival and everything, right? This goes beyond acknowledging something at a specific time. This is a daily thing here. I also want to consider the district to consider bilingual education. Districts such as Newark have a really high success rate with bilingual education, primarily in the earlier grades. So the best way to create a really competitive nation is to incorporate, enhance, encourage our students to continue with their multicultural and their bilingual backgrounds, not put the kibosh on it just because they're in school. So I also have a suggestion regarding equitable content. Forgive me, I have to write things down. Okay. So, it's not important. So, Black history needs to be taught in months other than February, right? So I acknowledge the importance of stock policies and compliance, but I believe we have to shift our thoughts from teaching such valid histories as a matter of compliance and make it the norm. So I'll say it again, we need to shift from this mentality of teaching something as compliance and make it the norm. And not just Black history, I'm talking about, diversity of curriculum, forgive me. Because until we include diversity of curriculum, education won't be inclusive or equitable. And students, they're really excellent judges of character. They can discern whether or not something is authentic or not. So, and I think that lastly, and this isn't to knock any of our wonderful educators, but we need more educators who can relate to and connect to the student culturally and ethnically. I think that would be really important. And once we get that new sound system, the board's working on. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you for giving us that space, and thank you for people who came out and who are watching at home. Right? Thank you.
Maybe you'd like to follow that. So
You don't have to. Thank you. I'm an elementary teacher here in the district, and I guess I was thinking that the equity that would be a little bit more talk about the LGBTQ curriculum that is due to start next year. Coming down to the elementary level. I don't know how many people in the district are aware of that, but the state has already started thinking about curriculums, and I am actually part of a cohort of Northern New Jersey, and I see the resources that other districts are already using, just as simple as just books, historical books that the elementary teachers can add to their curriculum. I saw high school stuff with maps, also intertwining Amazon and also the Holocaust and other people who suffer. And I was just more thinking that I would hear a little bit more where Belleville was going with that, and I guess as an educator in the district, I'm also wondering if we're going to start implementing it a little bit more, or we're going to get some more resources, I guess, for all the teachers, not just teachers who think it's kind of important, because that's not what the state's saying. The state's saying it needs to be broadened to everybody's perspective of what our culture in America is. It's not just, like Ray said before, Black History Month once a month. I don't do that as a teacher. I try to bring that in as much as possible into my own curriculum, but teaching about the LGBTQ could be a little bit difficult on an elementary level, so that's why I got myself involved. Because I kind of want to see how my coworkers are going to be able to do something like this, which is not an easy topic, especially when whole society is still not so. I don't have to go out there, but hopefully this will help.
Mike brings up a great point. I mean, we're obviously cognizant of that that new curriculum coming. Well, the new curriculums that are coming with that. So we've had dialogue about it. There's like QSAC we talked about a little bit. I think one of the interesting things, because Mike brings up some other districts that are a little bit more progressed in those areas than where we are. I think as this rolls out, it's another mandate that's, I hate to use the word underfunded or unfunded. It has really nothing to do with money. I also talk about the social equity in it, or economic social equity in it, where to kind of roll this out, right, where it's going to be mandated and have all of these individual teachers try to explain this to students that have probably parents with different views. There's probably religious views, so it's something that definitely has to happen. And it's something on our end that we've been talking about professional development-wise. It's a conversation we're going to have with our unions moving forward. It's going to be a very quick conversation because it's coming up really fast. But I think there's a lot of tendrils on the outside, a lot of things that we're going to talk about with this. It's not just as, there's not just a history component to this. So what we did last year, I think we put some clubs into effect that students came to us. So we're definitely aware of this and what's happening. So it's going to be rolled out. I know that we'll get support here from our staff. Again, when you talk about equity and access, we need to, or equity at least, we need to make sure that everyone is teaching it the same way. Like your concern was that everybody teaches it. I want to maybe mandated everybody teaches it, but it's not like just a historical perspective of some other things. It's easy to kind of talk about an historical event and say this is where we have to get in, and this is more of something that's not just historical. There are some historical milestones and whatnot, but I think that's going to take a little bit more to roll it out. So you're 100% correct. It's not that we haven't launched it. We are definitely not there yet completely. By the end of the next few months, you'll be hearing more about that from us. But I think it's going to take us a little bit longer to get to where some of those other places that you talk about have been working on. So, nothing yet. Nope, we haven't. That's a whole other. Well, again, we're still waiting. Yeah. Well, so to Mr. Barrera's point, there's not much officially rolled out yet from the state, so I have to wait till I see all of that, and then we can kind of handle how we have to handle internally too. There's nothing to really talk about yet. I mean, it's definitely coming up. So, and I welcome it. I'm glad it's here. It's just going to take a little longer. One second.
Hi, just going to step back. My name is also Sarah. I'm Sarah Sterling Lobby. My daughter Layla attends the middle school. She's in 7th grade. Attended school 8 before that. A couple of things. The first thing is that I want to applaud the fact that the district is making more of an effort on bilingual education. You saw the demographic numbers in the entire district. Our school 8, is even a higher population of Latino students, and probably I would bet, I don't know this for sure, but I would bet the highest population of non-English speaking parents. During the time that I was a parent at School 8, none of our events were bilingual and none of our communications were going home to parents in Spanish. I offered to teachers, I offered to our main office that I would translate things. I was not taken up on that offer. That to me was very frustrating because it was a missed opportunity to be able to engage parents. We can't on the one hand complain that parents don't come to things, and then on the other hand not make them feel included and provide them with an opportunity to understand what's happening for their children. It also puts kids in a really uncomfortable position of having to translate for their parents all the time. And that's unfair, because they get to be kids and they shouldn't have to have that responsibility. So I'm really glad to hear that that's something that we continue to work on. I'm also really excited about the fact that OECD is something that we're using as a framework to think about these things. But I want to point out to everyone that OECD is setting a minimum for the world. We live in the United States. We should have higher standards for our kids. And so a basic minimum, as far as I'm concerned, is simply not enough. We are a working middle class community. We have professionals that are a part of our community. Our motto says that we're building leaders. So if we're building leaders, not workers, then they need more than basic skills. We need to be thinking about how we're preparing every single child to think critically and imagine themselves as a leader in their community. And so that means doing some things that go beyond basics and doing them for everybody, not just the kids that we've identified as being talented and gifted. My daughter Layla is a part of the Talented and Gifted program at the middle school. I'm super happy with her experience. She loves her teachers. She wakes up every day really excited to go to school. And part of that is because the message that she's receiving is that she's amazing and she's special. And every single kid who walks into BMS should be receiving that message. And I know from her friends who are not in those classes, but that's not necessarily the case everywhere. So how do we create an environment that is welcoming and that is encouraging to all kids and that sees them as potential leaders? One of the ways that I think we can work on that is by looking at Michael Fullen's deeper learning, and I'm an educator too, I put out there. But deeper learning is a way of approaching how we learn that's not about rote instruction. It's not about memorizing stuff. It's not preparing for tests. It's digging really deeply into subjects, into a topic that's a real world problem, and having kids really think about how they can work to solve something, connect them with kids in other parts of the world. And I would put out there that every child in Belleville can benefit from that kind of learning experience and see themselves as future leaders in that way. To that end as well, I really want to encourage us to think about what we're doing with science instruction in elementary school. I know that 6th grade last year moved back into the elementary school, and that was a challenge. But at School 8, most of our kids receive no science instruction at all. And as a middle school grade, that's very difficult because those teachers now at the middle school are trying to make up for the fact that students missed an entire year of foundational science instruction. And I'll also admit, I'm a science educator. So one of the things that we know now about science instruction is that just like math, it builds over time. So if you miss a whole year, you put yourself way far behind in terms of the ability to catch up conceptually as we move ahead. So in terms of an equity issue, we want all of our kids to have the possibility of being in a science career. They need that access. They all need it. They need it in kindergarten, first grade, in second grade, in third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade. So that by the time they get to middle school and then high school, they're ready. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Michael Shelton, according to the Standard Maryland Trustee. So I do have a couple of questions to ask. Tonight's talk is labeled Superintendent's Equity Council. It raises the question, do we have an equity council? Or is that something that is planned to be implemented in the very near future? I'm not aware if there is an existing council.
Why wouldn't this be council? Why can't this be considered a council?
Sorry.
Why can't this group be considered a council?
Well, I was interested, we were planning to have a modified equity council. Over the last few days, I've done some reading online about what other districts, not only in New Jersey, but throughout the country, are doing in regard to the same issue. A number of communities have equity councils consisting of as many as 15 district stakeholders. They're appointed to 3 or 4 year terms by the superintendent of that district, just to help with this overall issue. So I wanted to know if it was.
No, I think we have enough people here to consider a nice size council where people are counseling us as a board.
That's fine.
So we have a follow-up, I don't need a directed number of
We don't have a formal council. And it's all I wanted to. I think it actually would be something worthwhile to do. This is obviously a critical education issue. We may want to have formal council positions with appointed positions for community members. I think it would serve the district's interest very well. So do something like that.
Yeah,
So,
I'll tell the board what to say.
during your talk, which again you always do very thorough, excellent presentations, you mentioned about the issue affecting the district where we have, because of Belleville's somewhat significant transit population, we have a number of students entering mid-year, which then somewhat compromises the classroom environment for given teachers. Is that an equity matter, or is this more of a proper grade placement issue? If you have a student showing up in classroom in January who's not fully up to that grade level, shouldn't that student then be put back 1 or 2 grade levels until they're able to compete at the same level as their peers?
That's a really good question. I'll say that. That's a really good question, but when a student comes in, usually comes with a set of transcripts. So if from the former school student gets an A, let's say, and that A is not equal to our B here, what you say, it's not proper for us at the moment of someone coming in to strip that A away and say, we won't have you for a week, we don't need you. So that's not, I don't even know if that's even allowable, to be honest with you. But I think if I was a parent, I would have a problem with that too. But regardless of that, right there, that describes the inequity issue that I explained what you're saying. So it does happen. It happens often too. And again, you're talking about specific teachers in different districts. Some teachers, their grades than other teachers. So you never know when grades are coming over. So again, what we do is at the end of the year, teacher can reassess. And one thing we talk about is trying not to retain students, but if a student needs to be retained, usually because they can't even read or some of the basic skills, that would be a consideration, not when they first get here. So from the, again, someone just registered today. You saw her today, I came out to the laboratory. How are you? Where are you coming from? Oh, where are you coming from? I don't know nothing about her. Her grades are great. She's going to get one of our teachers down. Our teacher might say, well, you don't know decimals yet. You don't know, and then she's behind. So now, where are we? So it's a bigger issue. It's not a scoring issue because that score wouldn't count that year per se. But, professionally, it would be an issue.
If you do have any data showing how many students are there, I would pass up Excel spreadsheet or any data you provide. I would like, and I'm sure the rest of my board members would like to know the extent of the problem. Okay, so this is a growing problem. We are all cognizant of the demographic changes in Belleville, and with so many large-scale residential projects now in the works, Belleville's population could easily increase several thousand over the next few years. So we have a major problem at this point in time. It's best to be proactive and deal with matters so that we're not bothered a few years from now. Which leads me to my last question. You mentioned during the discussion about pre-K expansion, and you have some data now that indicates that the next few years there are upwards of 600 students in need of pre-K
So
services.
that's not what the state gives us. It's take your kindergarten, first grade number, or just Brian counts as first grade. Take your first grade number and put it in take.
Yes, it's take grade, pre-K,
Pick 4. Right? Just take your first grade number
course of last year, when we were gearing up for the pre-K extension, the numbers I remember being given, the pre-K program was needed to accommodate about 300 students. So now it looks like the numbers are going to double.
Because what we were talking about last year in the beginning, until certain the Department of Education entities got involved, we were only talking about expanding pre-K 4. Now it's 3 and 4, so that's what 600.
Well, with that many, if we're going to see a large expansion in the pre-K program, almost inevitably those students would then feed into kindergarten, first grade, et cetera. So that's why I'm still
Well, that's happening, but that's happening regardless. What I'm saying is that the numbers say that there are 600 students right now at home that can benefit from school. That's what we say. Those students inevitably come to kindergarten.
I'm just concerned at this point, in light of what our demographers told us, that over the next 5 years, the district's population is going to stay roughly constant at about 4,500. There are all these other little disturbing signs that we may wind up overnight in the next 2 or 3 academic years, going from our current population of about 4,500 to easily 5,000, or even beyond that, and what impact that's going to have on all of us. So I think we all need to be on the same page, make sure we're all in agreement, whatever data is available, and we prepare properly before we really don't have a catastrophic situation. So I can talk to you separately about these matters, but I'd like to have the information available about the pre-K projected population over the next few years, so that I fully understand what is likely to happen. That's why I mostly just do research. I don't know my notes on this.
Okay, well, you guys have been great. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I know it's late. This is really important. It's funny because I know people always say it's the same people over and over that come to these things, but that's okay with me. I'd love to pack this place, don't get me wrong. But I think that if there was one person here, 50 people, it doesn't matter. As long as there's an interest, it really is contagious. So again, spread this around, tell people what's happening. We're going to have follow-up council once we get some of the data. You're going to be receiving an email at home with a link to this presentation. I appreciate you coming. There'll also be a email there if you have any other suggestions or if you want to send